Back in the early 1990s, the arcade scene was dominated by the hit fighting game Street Fighter II. People were drawn in with the good graphics, interesting and fun characters, and the solid mechanics that young teens sunk dozens of quarters into, perfecting the use of special moves. With such a big success, how can you hope to compete with a different game? By making that game extra violent.
Liu Kang wins. Flawless victory. Fatality.
In 1992, a handful of men, most noteworthy Ed Boon and John Tobias, were working on a licensed game for the Jean-Claude Van Damme movie Universal Soldier. But when that didn't pan out, they decided to take those ideas, mixed in with some Chinese mythology and inspiration from several kung fu movies, and they wanted to make a game that stepped up the current graphics by using digitized sprites of real actors, had a deep engrossing storyline with lots of interesting characters, and insane shock value involving loads of gory finishers. The result of which became... When the game released in arcades late 1992, it caused quite a number of stirs. Gamers loved it for its gameplay and characters, and marveled at the bloody execution moves known as fatalities. Those fatalities also got some parents and governments riled up, and Mortal Kombat became the primary reason for the creation of the Entertainment Software Ratings Board, or the ESRB, to limit the sales of certain games to certain age groups, and to detail what a game contains and what age is recommended to play. Mortal Kombat was a hit back then, and it's a hit right now, spawning tons of other games and spin-offs, comics, and 2 movies that are remembered fondly for some reason. Now, I've never played any of the original Mortal Kombat games, but I did play all the ones that were made for the PS2, like Deadly Alliance, Shaolin Monks, and Armageddon. But I was aware of the story in the original games, a story of a group of warriors trying to defend their home from an evil emperor. But in the originals, it was told through character bios and other small details, and so after Armageddon, Boon and Tobias, now with the help of Warner Brothers, decided it was time to continue and then reset the story with the 9th installment, Mortal Kombat 2011. After 5 years since the last main game of the series, the reboot was meant to clear up and retell the first 3 stories, while creating a new path for future games to build upon a new canon. And it also boasted great new graphics and the most brutal fatalities to hit your TV screens that wouldn't be topped until the next game came out. And we're talking about the reboot today, specifically the complete edition on Xbox 360. How's it hold up almost 7 years down the line? Step into the arena and get your knuckles cracking. Let's take a look at Mortal Kombat 9.
Dun dun dun.
Now, there's a lot of lore to the world of Mortal Kombat, and some context would help out in this explanation, so here's the crux of what you need to know. In the dark realm of Outworld resides an evil emperor known as Shao Kahn, and in his quest for power and domination, he wants to stretch out his rule over the other realms. But the deities known as the Elder Gods think that the other realms deserve a chance to defend themselves against Khan's invasions, and so they made a compromise, that every 50 years a martial arts tournament would be held and Outworld would send its best warriors in to compete against the realm's defenders, and if Outworld won 10 consecutive tournaments, Khan would be free to do as he pleased. Shao Kahn sets his sights on the realm of Edenia and conquers it through the tournaments, and claims the Queen Sindel and takes in her daughter Kitana as his own. Now Khan has his sights set on Earthrealm, and it's up to its defenders, led by the god of thunder Raiden, to defend it. In the original timeline, Shao Kahn was stopped time and time again, but always managed to find a new way to try and invade Earthrealm. And after the events of Armageddon, he had achieved unstoppable power, and has killed all the other heroes and is about to finish off Raiden. But before Raiden dies, he casts a spell on his amulet to send a message across time to his young self in the time when the first game took place. With Raiden is his pupil, a Shaolin monk named Liu Kang, and they're eventually allied with others, Sonya Blade, a no-nonsense military woman looking for her partner Jax, and Johnny Cage, a movie star who wants to advance his career and technique, but mostly get a date.
And I'm taking you down, I'm taking you down, I'm taking you out, I'm taking you out, and I'm taking you out for dinner.
Ugh.
What the story mode consists of is 16 chapters of 4 to 5 fights with almost every character in the game's roster. Each chapter tells a snippet of what a character is going through, and mainly is just setting up reasons to make fights happen. Now let me clarify that the story of Mortal Kombat is really interesting overall. Over its course, we see the different parts our characters play, and their interactions with their fellow warriors. The main story is Raiden getting visions of events and trying to find different ways to prevent the future he saw, but all his efforts seem to make things worse. But there's a number of subplots sprinkled along the way, fleshing out the other characters. Not what I meant. When playing as Cyrax, an assassin from a group called the Lin Kuei, we find out that the Legion is about to undergo a transformation, turning everyone into robots, in order to do away with their free will and create more effective killing machines. And through Scorpion's chapter, we get the graphic details on the rivalry between him and Sub-Zero, who supposedly was responsible for the slaughter of Scorpion's entire clan, the Shirai Ryu. And when Sub-Zero is killed, his younger brother Tundra takes his identity on his own quest for revenge. These subplots do come together and build upon the world to make the story feel big for something that's literally stapled together by setting up situations for the purpose of getting characters to fight.
Shao Kahn is your father?
I have disgraced him. You must kill me.
I will not. This encounter never took place. You have disgraced no one. I hope we meet again. Under different circumstances.
That being said, however, while the story is interesting with lots of lore and character development, in hindsight, it's not all that well structured. In the tournament early on, there's often scenes of characters fighting 2 matches and then for Shang Tsung to call everyone off and say they'll continue later. Only one guy fought, everyone else is ready to go. And after only 1 match, Liu Kang finds himself in the quarterfinals, and this is just the first arc. Another rather distracting thing is there are too many fights that just happen from pure misunderstanding. Like Jax's chapter, he gets annoyed at Johnny for trying to flirt with Sonya, so he beats his face in, and then they're buddies again. Or the last fight of Jade's chapter where Smoke attacks her, despite a group of people telling him not to. She then proceeds to crush his testicles and break his spine. And then he acknowledges he was in the wrong and can stand up just fine. I know it's a fighting game and that's what the gameplay consists of, but there are a lot of needless fights that really don't progress anything. And when you're stuck with some character, the focus can be changed to a subplot full of pointless fights, only to find out you missed the more important story, and for only 1 match to hold any relevance. And then there are some really out of nowhere difficulty spikes that can get really frustrating even if you're playing the story on the lowest difficulty. I suppose this isn't a big bother if you're just after some context, and some good story beats, and don't mind some of the pointless stuff, but I think it's distracting enough if you think about it too much. It's like Will Ferrell. It's annoying, but it's just entertaining enough.
Ladies and gentlemen, can I please have your attention? I've just been handed an urgent and horrifying news story. And I need all of you to stop what you're doing and listen. Watch this.
I'm Ricky Bobby. If you don't chew Big Red, then you.
Back in the 90s, it was really impressive for Mortal Kombat to use digitized sprites of real actors, and when the games moved over to CGI, it made things look even better and bloodier, and Mortal Kombat 9 is no exception. The character models look pretty good, and despite their highly impractical costuming, they still emote and move fluidly, and in the story mode, the transitions from cutscenes to combat are pretty seamless. The facial animation is also pretty good, for the most part. For some reason, Kitana's unmasked face just looks really old and sunken. It's like this is the one instance of her having a less appealing face than Melina. The fluid animations continue when the fighters step into the ring, and even their idle standing is full of subtle motions that make the fighting style of each character truly unique. The different combat moves and fighting styles borrow from real techniques like karate, Muay Thai, Tai Chi, and more, and each fighter has a different way of doing the same basic punches and kicks. And the particle effects that shoot off from special moves add that extra dazzle to each hit, like bits of ice littering the floor from Sub-Zero's ice attacks, or the glisten of the blood that spurts out with pretty much every hit. The more damage a character takes during a fight, the more their outfits and body get torn up, and by the end of an intense battle, there can be whole chunks of flesh missing from their bodies. Something else that adds to the visual flair is the stages, because each one has a lot going on in the background, from the cheering crowds of the tournament arena, the agonized souls of hell, to the tranquil waterfall undisturbed by the chaos happening right in front of it. Each area has an atmosphere that gives it a lot of personality to what is simply a backdrop, and some stages even have their own special fatalities. Speaking of fatalities, they are the real star of the show. I don't care how tough you think you are, you will wince at some of these the first time you see them.
Noob Saibot wins.
Oh shit! You alright?
Good God, how violent. You wouldn't expect that from this game.
Ranging from over-the-top decapitations, maulings, crushing, severing, bisection. The majority of the fatalities are gruesome and surprising as the blood splatters and sprays from whatever new hole is put into their body, and the limbs and organs go flying everywhere, covering the arena, and often the fighter in blood. And the great voice work brings us the horrified and anguished screams from the victims, truly giving off the sense of pain and dread they must be going through in those few seconds before their life is finally over. It's pretty sick and twisted, really, but it's fun, and that's what's important.
Scorpion wins. Flawless victory. Fatality.
Okay, this is where I have some concerns. Not about the game, about me. I'm nervous to talk about a fighting game mechanically because, as much as I love them, I suck at them. The fighting game community is getting bigger and better all the time, and it's filled to the brim with competitive people who dedicate all their time to mastering the movesets of a single character in a single game. I am not one of these people. If you are, then that's awesome, don't get me wrong. But as a heads up, I'm not going to be talking about this as a
hardcore gamer.
I'm not going to be talking about stuff like frame data, hitboxes, negative edge, none of that stuff. That's not my forte. I'm going to be talking about this in a very casual way. Alright? Alright. When engaged in combat, you've got a variety of moves at your disposal. You've got buttons for punches and for kicks, and you hit your opponent in the different sections of their body: the head, chest, stomach, and legs. You can have a guard for incoming attacks, and you have to have the right placement in order to block respective high and low attacks. And you can break a guard by using a throw to grab your opponent and toss them in either direction. You can chain your attacks together to make combos to do more damage and subdue the enemy. First one to deplete the health bar of the other wins the round, and the one who wins the most rounds wins the match. Those are pretty much the basics of every fighting game nowadays, and although it's simple to start learning, there's leagues of depth under the surface to go a long way and quickly make things more complex, but also more interesting. Simple to learn, hard to master. Every character also has special moves to complement their movesets, ranged attacks like fire and energy balls, moves that can close or create distance, or other special abilities with different effects. And in the pause menu, you can look up all your moves list and see what buttons and directional presses you need for each move. As you deal or take damage, you got a special meter that fills up. You can use one of the 3 bars to enhance the use of one of your special moves, giving it more damage or change how it's used, 2 bars to use a combo breaker, so you can escape a combo in the middle of it, and then if you have a full bar, you get a shot at an X-ray attack, which is a powerful combo dealing loads of damage and giving you a really cool and brutal X-ray close-up of its heavy hits, causing bone breakage and internal damage. Outside of story mode fights, when you win a match, you have a chance to perform a fatality by doing the right button sequences at the proper distance. Each fighter has 2 fatalities, some stages have their own fatalities, or if you want to be PG about it, you can use babalities and turn your enemy into a baby and get some pretty good laughs, but also a few concerned awes.
Scorpion wins. Babality.
Each character has their own pros and cons, and there's bound to be a character that meshes with how you like to play. Jax has different grab moves and can grab enemies out of the air, Liu Kang has some more complicated special sequences but packs a bit more punch, and Shang Tsung can change into other characters, basically giving him access to almost all the abilities. Some of my favorite characters to play as include Noob Saibot, because he's simple to use with an easy to use teleport grab, and a shadow clone to charge out and tackle your opponents. Jade, because her bow staff attacks can hit hard and be easily chained with other attacks and special moves. P.S. She's also the hottest lady in the game. And Scorpion, because he's pretty much the all-rounder character, being able to close distances, attack from almost any distance, and easy to execute but strong combos. And you can even get a great chain going with only using your special moves. Other gameplay modes consist of training mode, where you can learn all about the basics and hone your skills at your own pace, tag matches where you fight with teams of 2, Test Your Luck, a fighting mode where you and your opponent get random modifiers that change how you play, and can limit your actions or give you huge power boosts. The Challenge Tower, which is a series of 300 challenges, each with their own unique modifiers that change the gameplay in some really significant ways, while also teaching you more about how to use certain characters and their powers, and also just putting them in weird situations. Across all these modes of play, you'll earn coins, rewarding you for performing combos, fatalities, winning matches, pretty much everything. What can you do with the coins? You can take them to the Crypt, a sort of marketplace where you can find more character costumes, fatalities, concept art, music, and more. It's a cool way to unlock stuff, as the Crypt has a bunch of different sections, each with their own unique chests, if you will. And you can go to your collection to see all the stuff you've unlocked, along with the character bios and model viewers. But if you got the complete edition, all the bonus costumes and fatalities are unlocked already, so you can use them without getting them from the Crypt. And finally, the mode you'll probably be spending the majority of your time with is the Ladder Mode, a series of 10 back-to-back fights. The first 8 enemies you fight are random, but the 9th fight is always going to be either Goro or Kintaro, and the final battle is always against Shao Kahn. After you defeat him, you get a clip of what became of the warrior you beat him with, and each ending shows what they've done with the power they received or how it affected them. Most of them are pretty interesting, and no matter how well you think you know a character, they don't exactly do what you'd expect. And speaking of the final fights of Ladder Mode, this brings us to one of the biggest problems in the game. In whatever mode you fight them in, Goro, Kintaro, and Kahn get absurd power boosts, making them hit harder and your hits deal less damage, and they can spam special moves from far away and can hit you with punishing combos when up close. So what's your best bet for defeating them? Improving your skills and learning how to counter their cheap ways? No, just be cheap yourself, keep your distance, and spam your range special moves. It really is the best way to go about fighting them. Yeah, it's cheap and unsatisfying way to win, but your alternative is getting squashed, so pick your poison. And you'll be fighting these guys a lot, so your options are get cheesy or get cheesed.
Shao Kahn wins. Flawless victory.
Despite Liu Kang winning the Mortal Kombat tournament and an extra winner-take-all tournament hosted in Outworld, Shao Kahn just keeps coming back, and even though friends are made, some are lost as well. Kahn has one last plan, to revive and brainwash the deceased Sindel, in order to lift her magic ward on Earthrealm so Kahn can attack it. The forces of Outworld invade and the defenders are at their limit, and despite Raiden's pleas to the Elder Gods, they say they can't intervene because Kahn isn't technically breaking the rules of the tournament. But while Raiden and Liu Kang are away, the writers said, hey, I think we have too many living characters right now, so let's Game of Thrones this up. And Sindel finds the hideout of our heroes and then proceeds to kill Cabal, Stryker, Sub-Zero, Jax, Smoke, Jade, and Katana. And then Nightwolf sacrifices himself in order to stop her. Jesus, 9 characters killed off just like that? Most of them died in the same minute! Raiden and Liu Kang return to see the results of the slaughter, with Johnny and Sonya as the only survivors. Liu Kang mourns Katana and says to hell with Raiden and his visions, and sets off to face Shao Kahn again. After a failed attempt to bargain with Quan Chi, who has claimed the souls of all those who have fallen, Raiden realizes that if Shao Kahn comes over and tries to merge Earthrealm with Outworld, the Elder Gods will be able to punish him. So Liu Kang tries to stop Raiden from letting Kahn through, and is accidentally killed.
Liu Kang, forgive me.
You have killed us all.
Raiden is about to lose all hope when the Elder Gods finally act, and in order to destroy Shao Kahn, Raiden must defeat him in Mortal Kombat. Kahn is defeated and Raiden destroys him, and peace is restored once more, but at a very steep cost. Our surviving trio go on to start rebuilding, but we see that Quan Chi had planned for Shao Kahn to be defeated, and has been under the rule of the disgraced Elder God, Shinnok, and they are about ready to helm their own invasion.
It is time. Soon I will be free. Earthrealm and Outworld will be ours.
Dun dun dun.
So that was Mortal Kombat 9 2011. How does it hold up? Pretty well, I think, although it's not quite a flawless victory. While I think it's an exemplary example of a great reboot that not only retells the original story while also changing it enough to create something new and interesting, but it also caps off the original story, but it also still holds relevance in the new timeline. It does have a bunch of pointless fights, and it's not the best told story, but I think one can see past that. And the moment-to-moment fighting action is really satisfying and fun when you find the character that's right for you, or if you just experiment with all of them and try the different special moves and fatalities. Years later, it's still a great game through and through, but is it still worth getting since Mortal Kombat X is around now? I think it is if you go for the complete edition, because it has everything unlocked as soon as you pop in the disc, so there's no need to spend time grinding for coins, and you can play as whoever wearing whatever right off the bat with all the fatalities available. The complete edition is still pretty cheap now, and if you want to get your friends together and play a fighting game with everything unlocked right away, it's the perfect package. Gather your friends, select your character, and, well, you know.
Fight! Liu Kang wins. Flawless victory. Fatality.
Close as a shadow and twice as silent.